When college student Jenna's first date grabbed her wrist and refused to let go, she thought her night couldn't get worse. Then 5 intimidating bikers at the next table rose from their seats, and she was certain it just had.
This is Hammer and Tails. Let's get started.
Jenna Parker had been excited about her date with Brad from her economics class. He seemed nice enough when they'd been paired for a group project, and when he asked her to dinner at Romano's, she'd said yes without hesitation. The evening had started well. Brad was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. But as the night progressed and he ordered his 4th beer, his personality began to shift. His jokes became crude, his comments more aggressive. When Jenna suggested they call it a night, Brad's demeanor changed completely. "Come on, don't be like that," he said, reaching across the table to grab her wrist as she stood to leave. "The night's just getting started." "I really need to go," Jenna said, trying to pull her arm free. "I have an early class tomorrow." Brad's grip tightened. "You're not going anywhere. I paid for dinner, and I'm not done with you yet." Jenna's heart started racing. The restaurant was busy, but nobody seemed to notice what was happening at their corner table. She looked around desperately for help, but the waitstaff were focused on other customers. That's when she noticed the table of bikers. 5 men in leather jackets sat at the table next to theirs, their backs covered in patches and club colors. They were big, intimidating, and looked like exactly the kind of people her mother had warned her to avoid. When they all turned to look at her table, Jenna felt her stomach drop. The situation was about to get much worse. The largest of the bikers, a man with graying hair and arms covered in tattoos, stood up slowly. The others followed suit, their chairs scraping against the floor as they rose. Other diners began to notice the commotion, conversations quieting as people sensed trouble brewing. Jenna closed her eyes, certain she was about to be caught in the middle of a bar fight. "Is there a problem here?" The lead biker's voice was calm but carried an unmistakable authority. Brad looked up, his grip still tight on Jenna's wrist. "Mind your own business, old man. This is between me and my girlfriend." "I'm not his girlfriend," Jenna said quickly, her voice shaking. The biker nodded, his eyes never leaving Brad's face. "Son, I think the lady would like you to let go of her arm. And I think you should sit down and finish your beer before this gets ugly," Brad replied, puffing out his chest in a display of false bravado. What happened next surprised everyone in the restaurant. The biker smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Trust me, you don't want this to get ugly." His voice remained calm, almost conversational. "Now, why don't you let the lady go and we'll walk outside for a little chat about how to treat people with respect." Brad looked around the table at the other bikers, all of whom were watching him with expressions that suggested they were hoping he'd make the wrong choice. The restaurant had gone completely quiet, every eye in the place focused on their table. "Jake, take care of the young lady," the lead biker said, without taking his eyes off Brad. "Make sure she's okay." A younger biker with kind eyes approached Jenna's side of the table. "You're safe now," he said gently. "Why don't you sit down while we sort this out?" Brad's bravado crumbled as he realized he was outnumbered and outmatched. He released Jenna's wrist and stood up, his face flushed with embarrassment and alcohol. "This is ridiculous. I wasn't doing anything wrong." "Outside," the lead biker said simply, gesturing toward the door. "Now." The group moved toward the exit, Brad sandwiched between the bikers like a prisoner being escorted to court. The restaurant remained silent as they left, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Jake stayed behind with Jenna, pulling out a chair for her to sit down. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" Jenna shook her head, rubbing her wrist where Brad had gripped it. "I'm okay, just shaken up." "Good. My name's Jake Morrison. Those are my brothers from the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club." He gestured toward the door where the others had disappeared with Brad. "We patrol this area regularly. Keep an eye on things." A woman with short blonde hair appeared beside them, sliding into the seat across from Jenna. "I'm Carol, Jake's wife. Are you all right, honey?" "I think so," Jenna said, her voice still trembling. "I just can't believe he grabbed me like that. We're in the same economics class. I thought he was a nice guy." Carol's expression softened with understanding. The nice ones usually don't show their true colors until they think they have you trapped. You did exactly the right thing by trying to leave. Through the restaurant window, Jenna could see the group of bikers talking with Brad in the parking lot. The conversation appeared one-sided, with Brad nodding vigorously while the bikers spoke. Whatever they were saying, it was clearly getting through to him. "What are they telling him?" Jenna asked. Jake glanced toward the window. "That in this neighborhood we look out for people, all people, and that his behavior tonight was unacceptable." "We don't just protect our own," Carol added quietly. "We look out for anyone who needs help." The simple statement carried more weight than any dramatic speech could have. Jenna felt tears forming in her eyes as the reality of what had just happened sank in. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was so scared." Carol reached across the table and squeezed Jenna's hand. "You should never have to feel scared on a date, honey. Any man worth your time will respect your boundaries." Jake pulled out his phone. "Do you need us to call someone? Parents? Friends? Campus security?" "My roommate," Jenna said. "She's probably wondering where I am." While Jake helped Jenna call her roommate, Carol studied the young woman's face. There was something about her that reminded Carol of someone important, someone they'd lost too soon. "How old are you, honey?" Carol asked gently. 20. "I'm a sophomore at the university." Carol's eyes grew soft. "You remind me of someone very special to us." She glanced at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. "My husband, Mike, the one who talked to your date, he had a daughter. She would have been about your age now." Jenna looked confused. "Would have been?" "We lost her when she was 16, Carol said simply. "Car accident. That's part of why we do what we do. Mike sees a piece of her in every young woman who needs help." The weight of that revelation settled over the table like a warm blanket. Jenna understood now why these intimidating strangers had stepped in without hesitation. They weren't just protecting a random college student. They were honoring the memory of someone they'd loved and lost. "I'm so sorry," Jenna said, meaning every word. "Don't be sorry, honey. Be careful, be smart, and remember that there are good people in this world who will stand up for you when you need it." The bikers returned from the parking lot, their expressions satisfied. Mike approached the table with the same calm authority he'd shown throughout the evening. "Your friend won't be bothering you again," he told Jenna. "He's going to find a different way home tonight, and I suspect he'll be finding different restaurants from now on, too." "What did you tell him?" Jenna asked. "That in our neighborhood we have certain expectations about how people treat each other, especially how men treat women." Mike's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. He seemed very receptive to learning about those expectations. Jake stood up as a young woman with long brown hair hurried through the restaurant entrance. "That must be your roommate." "Jenna." The woman rushed over, wrapping Jenna in a tight hug. "Are you okay? Your text scared me to death." "I'm fine, thanks to them," Jenna said, gesturing to the bikers who had become her unexpected protectors. Carol stood up and extended her hand to Jenna's roommate. "I'm Carol Morrison. My husband and his club helped your friend out of a difficult situation tonight." "Thank you so much," the roommate said, shaking Carol's hand gratefully. "I can't believe some guy would act like that." "Unfortunately, it happens more than it should," Carol replied, but Jenna handled herself well. She knew when to ask for help. As the group prepared to leave, Carol pulled Jenna aside one more time. "Honey, I teach self-defense classes at the community center on Saturday mornings. Basic stuff, but enough to give you confidence and some practical skills." She handed Jenna a card. "First class is free. I'd love to have you." Jenna looked at the card, then back at Carol's kind face. "I'd like that. Thank you." "Good. And Jenna? Trust your instincts. They're usually right. If someone makes you uncomfortable, don't worry about being polite. Get somewhere safe." As Jenna and her roommate left the restaurant, they could hear the bikers settling back at their table, their conversation returning to normal topics like work and weekend plans. To them, intervening in a dangerous situation was just part of an ordinary evening out. The next morning, Jenna woke up to find 17 missed calls from Brad. When she played the voicemails, his tone had changed completely from the aggressive man she'd encountered the night before. "Jenna, I'm so sorry about last night. I was way out of line. I've been thinking about my behavior, and I realize I was completely wrong. I'm going to get some help. I hope you can forgive me someday, but I understand if you can't. I won't bother you again." True to his word, Brad never approached her again. When they encountered each other in economics class, he kept his distance and avoided eye contact. Jenna learned from classmates that he'd dropped out of school 2 weeks later. That Saturday, Jenna showed up at the community center for Carol's self-defense class. She wasn't the only college student there. Word had spread through campus about the incident at Romano's, and several other young women had decided to learn some basic protection skills. Carol proved to be an excellent teacher, combining practical techniques with confidence-building exercises. But more importantly, she created a supportive environment where women could talk about their experiences and learn from each other. "The goal isn't to turn you into fighters," Carol explained during Jenna's first class. "It's to give you tools and confidence so you never feel helpless again." After the class, Jenna approached Carol with a question that had been bothering her all week. "Can I ask you something? Why do you and your husband's club do this? I mean, why do you care about strangers?" Carol smiled, the same warm expression she'd worn that night at the restaurant. "Because we've all needed help at some point, and because we believe that looking out for each other is what makes a community strong." She paused, looking out the window at the parking lot where several motorcycles were parked. "And because Mike's daughter would have been your age now, every time we help a young woman like you, we honor her memory." 6 months later, Jenna had become a regular at the self-defense classes and had even started volunteering to help newer students. She'd also become friends with several members of the Iron Wolves Club, learning that behind their intimidating exterior were parents, grandparents, teachers, and business owners who genuinely cared about their community. The incident with Brad had taught her valuable lessons about trusting her instincts and recognizing red flags in relationships, but more importantly, it had shown her that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected sources. When people asked her about that night at Romano's, Jenna always told them the same thing. The scariest-looking people in the room turned out to be her guardian angels, and that the biker community's motto wasn't just words on a patch. They really did look out for anyone who needed help. The lesson stayed with her long after college. In a world where trust was often misplaced, Jenna had learned that character had nothing to do with appearance, and that the most protective people were often the ones you'd least expect.
Liked hearing this one? Hit that like button and subscribe to Hammer and Tales for more. Check out the next story on your screen. It's a good one. See you next time.